I am generally interested in nootropics to improve my performance at work, computer scientist, as well as maximize the productivity of my wakeful hours. This is largely to combat anhedonia and low-grade depression and anxiety that I believe is a lingering side effect from repeated Chantix usage in attempts to quit smoking. My current substances profile consists of 6 mg MSAM, selegiline, a selective MAOI patch, 3 mg/milliliters of vaping, and nightly cannabis use. In the past, I have experimented primarily with nootropics, racetams, theanine, bromantane, etc., opioids, hydrocodone, oxycodone, tramadol, stimulants, Adderall, Ritalin, modafinil, adrafinil, armodafinil, and some random other psychotropics, synthetic cannabinoids, salvia. I decided to try Tianeptine as I had read about it as a nootropic previously, and I was intrigued by its opioid effects as I very much enjoy a good opiate buzz, though with a healthy respect for how addictive they generally are. Surgery left me on them for a few weeks, never experienced any withdrawal symptoms, but certainly enjoyed them while they lasted. I had originally obtained Tianeptine sodium and experimented with dosing up to approximately 125 mg at a time, finding this would give me a pretty nice buzz, but the incredibly short half-life was of concern. The short life of the sodium version of Tianeptine led me to obtain some Tianeptine sulfate to experiment with that. I initially started dosing at 4 times the Tianeptine sodium dose I was taking previously, as molar mass and bioavailability of Tianeptine indicated this would be an appropriate dosage. This is definitely a good rule of thumb. Over the course of a week, I dosed between 400 mg to 600 mg of Tianeptine sulfate. Initially, the experience was quite pleasant, minus the constipation, but I found myself gaining a very rapid tolerance, hence the dosage increase. I also noticed I would become impatient with people while coming down. When I reached about 550 mg, I noticed I would get an extreme wave of nausea and begin sweating heavily. I never actually vomited, but certainly had to actively prevent myself from doing so on a couple of occasions. This feeling subsided after about a half an hour. I'm not sure if this was an indication of an overdose, but take this as a warning. After about a week of experimentation, I decided that I would abstain and see how I felt. Compared to the warm glow and emotion-dulling nature of the Tianeptine high, the first day of sobriety after that binge was largely just a lazy day. I felt pretty unmotivated and slightly down. Little did I know these feelings would only get worse over the next 3 days. At first, I was having extreme difficulty sleeping, primarily due to a strong restless leg syndrome sensation that prevented me from getting comfortable in bed, hours of tossing and turning and no sleep. I then fell into a severe depressive episode, feeling the lowest I have felt in quite some time. It was an overwhelmingly awful experience, and had I not known that it would end eventually, thanks to other users' reports, I am not sure what I would have done, and the thought truly scares me. It has now been about 3 weeks since I stopped taking Tianeptine. I've thrown out the rest of it and will not be taking any more. I am definitely back to baseline mood-wise, but it took approximately 1.5 weeks to get there. I hope this serves as a warning to anyone considering Tianeptine. I cannot speak to the low, continuous dosages as a nootropic, but I can say definitively, this is not a drug to use recreationally. It has a very rapid tolerance buildup and severe withdrawal symptoms. I ignored the warnings of others, much to my detriment. It simply isn't worth it. I had been curious about trying Kratom for a year or so and decided I was ready to spend the money to do so. I ordered 1 ounce from a website I trusted. I followed the directions on the infusion on their website, boiling 23 grams of the leaves in 2 1-liter changes of water, straining and boiling down the infusion until there was only about 100 milliliters. The preparation was brown-red and tasted very bitter. My dosage was, according to the instructions, just above a strong dose, 20 to 50 grams. About 15 minutes after drinking the tea at 10 p.m., I was already flying. My heart rate had jumped through the roof, and I had the feeling that everything was moving very fast all around me and through me. Another half hour of this made it necessary to lie on the couch and not to do anything but stare at the mandala on the wall. I was simultaneously sped up and unable to budge from my spot on the couch. Nausea began to increase in waves at this time, each wave 5 or 10 minutes between, stronger than the one before. I had to close my eyes and began to hallucinate somewhat. The hallucinogenic aspect to this was not like psychedelics. I had powerful visual impressions in a way, and they were vivid, but I didn't exactly see them. It was more that I had the feeling that I was seeing them and experiencing them, very hard to explain. But the scenarios I was perceiving were getting stranger and much faster. Finally, the nausea was just way too much, and I sprinted to the bathroom, projectile vomiting. This was now probably 90 minutes into the experience. I was in the bathroom for 1 to 2 hours, vomiting and heaving, unable and unwilling to move. The body feeling was related to the feeling of an anxiety attack or the onset of a bad trip, although I didn't literally feel anxious. It was just a blur. Impressions like above just blasted through my mind constantly. So quickly I only had the sensation of the rate of change of the hallucinations, not of any one hallucination. Again, this is very hard to explain. After the bathroom, my roommate helped me back to the couch. My leg had fallen asleep in the bathroom to the point where I couldn't walk, and I heaved there for the next 3 or 4 hours. The effects of the drug were slowing down somewhat, except for the feeling of my heart wanting to escape my chest. The hallucinations I was having diminished. After this, I heaved in my bed for the following 11 hours or so, with multiple attempts to keep down food in between bouts of heaving. Not until 3 p.m. the following day was I able to keep food down. I also noticed that sitting or standing up made nausea increase rapidly during this time. So the moral here is to be careful on your dosages. The site I looked at claims this is barely even a strong dose, but I imagine that if I had taken the upper end of a strong dose, I may have required hospitalization. If my dose had been more like 8 to 12 grams, this experience would likely have been rewarding. Alright, the website that said it was a strong dose really misled them. That is a very, very strong dose, especially to a person just trying it. If your tolerance is that high, then you can do it. But people who have never done Kratom, they start out with 23 grams, yeah, this shit's gonna happen because it's just that powerful when you have that much. This person made a mistake, but also the website made a mistake because 20 grams for a first dose is just way too much. But yeah, like I said, if your tolerance is already that high, it's no problem. Even then though, it's a pretty big dose. Alright, I just wanted to point that out. Let's move on to the next story. It all started a week before when I saw these really cool looking pills behind the counter at a gas station. The pills were yellow and black and actually looked like yellow jackets. I got some before work where one of my coworkers and I sniffed one for kicks. We couldn't handle the extreme burning sensation and it didn't really do anything for us, though we both seemed rather pissed off for no apparent reason. My coworker at one point went in the back room and punched the wall. A few days later, I was really tired before work, so I popped 2 of them, even though the recommended dosage is 1. I ended up working my ass off all night. I was rather happy and I had a good feeling going through my body. I didn't really like how my hair seemed to tingle, but I didn't really mind. The night went okay, even though I felt a little sick later that night. Nothing major though. So, about 3 days later, I'm in the same situation. I wasn't really tired or anything. I got a good night's sleep. On my way to work, I reached in my glove compartment, grabbed a bottle of yellow jackets, and popped 3 of them. I work at a restaurant. About a half an hour after I started, I was making the food faster than I've ever seen anyone make it. It was made well too. My boss told me I was doing the best she'd ever seen me do. At about 2 p.m., the lunch rush was over. It was my turn to go on break. I made myself something to eat and the same coworker that I tried snorting the shit with sat with me. We had plans to go to the driving range later that night. I was looking forward to it. I took a bite of my sandwich. That's the last bite I took. There was no way I could eat. I suddenly felt sick to my stomach. I've never felt that sick before. I thought I was gonna throw up, so I went to the bathroom. No luck. My boss let me go home early, and that's when the shit really hit the fan. I was trying to relax, lying on my couch watching TV, when I started throwing up. I ran to the bathroom and actually threw up blood. I thought that would be the end of it. I threw up again about a half an hour later, again blood. I thought I should eat something, a bowl of cereal, since I lost so much shit throwing up. The cereal came back up about 10 minutes later. I threw up once more about an hour after, but I still felt like shit. My heart was racing and I started to get really paranoid. I went online and read all this shit about how it's possible to get a stroke or a heart attack on ephedrine. I really thought I was gonna die. At about 10 p.m., I felt fine. I actually felt pretty good. I still had energy to spare and had a little cool feeling in my body similar to coming down in ecstasy without the psychoactive effects. I flushed those fucking pills down the toilet regardless. I can't even look at those motherfuckers again. I have always enjoyed Kava as a dream enhancer and as a relaxing substance. The effects that I get from it are always very mild though, so I decided to do an experiment. About 4 hours before this experiment, I had smoked some pot, but I was no longer high when I swallowed the capsules. At about 9 o'clock at night, I downed 60 Kava pills, a total of 4,500 milligrams of Kava lactones. I started watching some TV, and after about a half an hour, I got very tired. I shut off the TV and drift off to sleep. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I am woken up. I am sweating and my vision is completely blurred. I realize that I'm going to have to throw up, so I jump out of bed, but I'm not able to support my own weight. I collapse on the floor, the whole room spinning around me. I frantically crawl to the bathroom and throw up for about 2 hours straight. During each break from puking, I curl up in a fetal position next to the toilet and watch the whole room spin faster and faster until I have to throw up again. At about 5:30, I feel like I have nothing left in me, so I crawl back to bed. I am still not able to walk. I sleep for several hours, and then I'm woken up again by a terrible stomachache and headache. I stumble out of bed. I notice that my vision is still blurred, like underwater vision. I am unable to communicate with my mom. My words are slurred and I constantly forget where I am. It is not until 30 hours after eating the pills that I gain back sobriety. The hangover was worse than alcohol, and I remember rolling around on the floor, tearing and swearing from the pain. As someone with a high drug tolerance and with minimal effects from Kava pills in the past, I was still knocked right into place by this substance. Well, I knew I was going to have to stay up late one night to help clean up after a big party, so before the event I went to the pharmacy and bought some generic brand no-dose and Ephedrine. I am an experienced coffee drinker and have never had problems like this with caffeine before. My guess is that I finally reached the threshold of safety. In the morning before going to set up, I had my average morning mug of coffee that I've been drinking pretty much every day for the past year or so, as well as a bowl of soup. Over the span of about 8 hours, I ended up consuming a coffee drink with 2 shots of espresso, a can of Diet Coke, a can of Rockstar energy drink, and 6 caffeine pills. At first, things were going great. At about 2 p.m., I drank the cappuccino and felt mildly buzzed and ate a few slices of pizza so that I'd have something in my stomach. Excited to try caffeine pills for the first time, I popped 2 and I felt like I had already come down from the coffee, approximately 6 p.m. The 2 caffeine pills gave a very intense high, which I would say was equivalent to a low dose of amphetamine. At this point, I was not starting to feel jittery or unpleasant, just generally energetic and intense. I was feeling charismatic and sociable, and even when I had to deal with the police for a while, I spoke well, made them happy, and didn't arouse any suspicion of being under the influence. I did not notice or care about the chill outside, and I remember having to urinate a lot, maybe twice an hour. About an hour after taking the pills, I started to nurse the Rockstar and ended up finishing the 2-serving can at around 9:30 p.m. The buzz didn't get any more intense, just became prolonged. At around 11, I finally felt as though I was starting to come down from it and tried to relax a little. The sound and lights of the party were starting to become overwhelming, and I wanted to take a nap, but there was no room. At 11:30, I decided to take 2 more of the pills and decided that they weren't working at around 12:30, so I took 2 more. Big mistake. I started noticing negative effects almost immediately afterward. The previously comfortable area was starting to feel deathly cold, and I noticed that my hands were shaking and could not control them. By 1, I felt like I was a zombie. All I wanted to do was lay down and sleep, but I couldn't do anything but shuffle around. I was intensely frustrated by the fact that no one wanted to move from the chill area so that I could take a nap. I felt like my heart was beating twice as fast as normal, and I could feel my blood pumping all over my body. At around 1:30, it started to sink in how much caffeine I had taken, and I was worried about having a stroke. I sat down against the wall and curled up into a ball, sweaty and twitching, but at the same time very cold and still worried about my health. By 2, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I left a note of apology for the rest of my crew and started to ride my bike home. I was so frustrated and upset that I just felt like laying down on the pavement and not doing anything. Not really like a suicidal feeling, just wishing it would all stop and I would wake up from it like a bad dream. I only got a few blocks before I threw up in some bushes. The vomit tasted horrible, sour and bitter, and was a chartreuse color probably from all the Rockstar I'd been drinking. After that, I didn't vomit anymore, but felt nauseous and had bad heartburn. I finally managed to make it home and plop down in my bed. Despite the fact that I felt like I had never been more tired in my life, I could not sleep. After a while, maybe at 3 o'clock, I fell asleep, but woke up again shortly and slept restlessly with very strange dreams. This happened a few times, but strangely by 7 o'clock, I didn't feel as tired. It was like I even slept faster somehow after taking that much caffeine. I took a bath and lazed around for the next few hours. By that time, most of the effects were gone except for the loss of appetite and gastrointestinal distress, which may have just been caused by not eating. After this experience, I'm going to remove caffeine from my diet for a few weeks at least. Just the smell of coffee makes me gag still. I am amazed that something that I'm so familiar with and is considered so harmless by society could have such intense consequences, especially at such a relatively low dosage compared to what I usually drink. I have never had such a terrible come down from any drug before, legal or illegal. It certainly shines a new light on my morning cup of joe. Let me make sure I heard that right. Especially at a low dose? This dude literally had over 1,000 milligrams of caffeine. That is not a low dose. Oh, God. Caffeine is a safe drug, isn't it? Go fuck yourself. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and subscribe if you're new, and have a good day.